In this lesson, we will show you how to set up Tailwind in a Vue project. We will start from ground zero. First, we create a new Vue project. We name it Vue Tailwind. The new Vue project has been set up. Next, we install Tailwind as a development dependency. The full package name is Tailwindcss. We need its latest version. We also need another two packages, PostCSS and AutoPrefixer. Both need to be in their latest versions as well. Now we have installed every dependency we need. Next, we create two config files, one for Tailwind and one for PostCSS. We don't need to create these two files manually. The Tailwind package comes with a command that helps us do this. We run it via npx. The command name is the same as the Tailwind package name. Init is for Tailwind and -p for PostCSS. We can see the two config files have been created. By the way, if you find the installation command too long to remember, don't worry. Go to the Tailwind official website and open its documentation. Open the installation instruction. You will find guides on installing Tailwind in several platforms. Click View 3. You will find the installation command and the command for setting up the two config files. Just copy and paste these two commands. Next, we open the project in Visual Studio Code and turn on the dev server. At this moment, Tailwind hasn't taken effect yet, but before we carry on, we need to install a plugin for Visual Studio Code. The plugin name is quite long, so just search the keyword Tailwind. The first result is what we need. The full plugin name is Tailwindcss IntelliSense. It offers us a list of suggested Tailwind classes based on the first letter we submit. Most importantly, it also shows us the CSS properties the selected Tailwind class represents. This plugin can save us lots of time. We don't have to constantly check the manual. Make sure you get this plugin. It is a must-have for Tailwind developers. Next, we enable Tailwind for the current Vue project. Go to the src directory and create a CSS file. We name it index. Tailwind classes will be injected into this file. Creating an empty file is not enough. We need to build an infrastructure in this file to manage injected classes. Type @tailwind into the index file. @tailwind is a directive. All Tailwind directives start with the character. The Tailwind directive helps us create layers. Different layers have different priority levels. We can see the plugin we just installed is already working. It has generated a list showing us the options we can put behind the Tailwind directive. It also gives us a brief introduction of each option. In total, we have 4 options, which means we can declare 4 layers. We only need the base, components, and utilities layers. The order is very important. You must declare the base layer first and the utilities layer last. For now, just remember this syntax. We will learn more about the 3 layers later. Next, we import the index.css file into the main.js file. Now we have enabled Tailwind for the current Vue project. The moment I save the file, Tailwind will take effect. Pay attention to how the page is going to change. The logo image has been moved to the left side of the browser window, but all the text is still centrally aligned. The text size has been unified. The button style is gone. It just looks like a piece of string. So how did this happen? We open the root component file. The img tag is an inline block element. Therefore, it can be controlled by the text-align property. This is why it was placed in the horizontal center before we enabled Tailwind. Tailwind runs a process called Preflight where it applies a series of custom styles to HTML tags. The img tag will be converted into a block element which is not controlled by the text-align property. This is why it will be located to the left side of the browser window after Tailwind has been enabled. Let's prove this. We make a copy of the img tag. We can see the new image occupies a new line, which is a typical character of block elements. The Tailwind Preflight also sets a uniform text size for all tags and removes the basic style of the button tag. We can turn off Preflight in the Tailwind config file. We add a new option named Core Plugins. We set Preflight to false. The original page style has been restored. Keeping Preflight enabled is necessary. It helps avoid interferences from default HTML styles. Next, we move the image back to the horizontal center. We will do it using Tailwind classes. Tailwind does not offer pre-styled elements. To create the element style you want, you must first know how to do it using native CSS. Then you can select the right classes from Tailwind. Under the native CSS, to move a block element to the horizontal center, we set its left and right margins both to auto. The M class is for setting margins in all 4 directions. The MX class sets horizontal margins only. We can see the Tailwind plugin offers us a list of suggested Tailwind classes based on the first letter we submit. It also shows us the CSS properties the selected Tailwind class sets. The MX auto class is what we need. Now the image is back to the horizontal center. Tailwind has too many utilities. It's impossible to memorize or even know all of them. Constantly checking the manual is not realistic either. This is why the Tailwind IntelliSense plugin is a must-have. Tailwind utility names are either based on the CSS property name or the style name. Just type in the first letter of CSS property name or style name and see what the IntelliSense plugin suggests. Currently, our own native CSS codes are working together with Tailwind classes. It is best to only use Tailwind classes. So how do we apply Tailwind classes in our own class? We use the apply directive. Now we can style the app div using Tailwind classes. Next, let's output bundled files. We turn off the dev server and run the build command. We got 3 warnings. This is because we haven't turned on purging yet. The bundling is now over. We can see the size of the CSS file is huge. Its total size is over 3 megabytes. Considering we have only set 3 Tailwind classes, such a huge file size is unacceptable, so we must enable purging to get rid of unused classes. We go back to the Tailwind config file and find the purge option. We list the paths of files that use Tailwind classes. The template HTML file needs to be included. Then we list every file from the SRC directory using a custom regular expression syntax. Double asterisks match all child directories of the SRC directory. Asterisk matches all file names. Behind it, we add a dot and a set of curly brackets. We list acceptable file name extensions inside the curly brackets. Usually, we list Vue and JS. If your project uses TypeScript, add TS as well. Now we have enabled purging. Let's bundle again. This time, the file size is a lot smaller. We turn the dev server back on. After purging has been enabled, we then turn on Jit Mode. Jit stands for just in time. It changes the way Tailwind pre-processes its source code, giving us much faster response. Turning on the Jit mode won't affect the bundled results. In our following lessons, I will use the Jit mode. Under the Jit mode, the Tailwind directive sets different layers. We can see the screens layer has been replaced by the variance layer. The variance layer is placed at the very bottom. It works as an escape hatch. Codes injected into this layer will be placed at the very end of the final bundled style sheet, thus having the highest priority. Most of the time, you won't need this layer. The first 3 layers are already enough.